The most famous fact about the Great Wall of China
is a lie you've heard your entire life.
that it is the only man-made structure visible from space with the naked eye.
It sounds powerful. It sounds immortal. It sounds like something built by a civilization
Trying to touch the heavens. But astronauts who have actually looked down at Earth
would tell you the truth.
from orbit,
The wall disappears. It dissolves into mountains. It blends into shadow and rock. It becomes invisible.
and that invisibility is the perfect metaphor.
Because the real story of the Great Wall is not the one you see on postcards.
It is not the one tourists photograph in Beijing. It is not a simple
Grey ribbon crawling across green hills. The Great Wall is not a wall. It is a machine, a military organism.
a 2,000-year experiment in fear, power, engineering,
Betrayal and survival.
and it began long before China was China, before emperors, before dynasties, before unification. During the Warring States period,
China was fractured.
7 rival kingdoms fought endlessly for dominance
Each state built defensive barriers.
along vulnerable frontiers.
These early walls were not beautiful brick fortresses. They were rammed earth embankments, compacted soil hardened by labor and desperation.
They were built fast. They were built brutally.
And they were built with one purpose: delay. Because in the north, across the steppe, moved a different kind of enemy: nomadic cavalry, horse archers.
Who could travel farther in a day than infantry could?
In 3,
Armies that did not depend on supply chains or fixed cities.
they moved like wind. They struck like lightning.
And they vanished before retaliation arrived.
You cannot outrun cavalry with bureaucracy. So,
You changed the landscape,
in 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang,
unified the warring states under one empire.
he did not build the Great Wall from nothing.
He ordered the separate walls connected.
Extended, reinforced,
Hundreds of thousands of laborers were mobilized.
convicts, soldiers, peasants. The work was relentless, the death toll enormous.
But Qin's wall was not the one you know.
It was earth and timber functional.
Harsh, a scar across the land, and even that was not permanent.
Dynasties rose. Dynasties fell.
Sections decayed.
Frontiers shifted.
Then came the Mongols, and everything changed. The Ming dynasty understood.
Something previous rulers had underestimated. The wall could not simply slow invaders.
It had to dominate terrain. The Ming
Reconstruction transformed the wall from a line
into a system. Brick replaced rammed earth, stone replaced timber. Watchtowers punctuated ridgelines.
at calculated intervals.
Mountain passes were engineered into choke points.
And here is where the story becomes almost unbelievable.
In the late 20th century, modern,
Engineers attempted to dismantle damaged Ming sections.
For restoration,
they assumed ancient mortar would crumble.
600 years old, exposed to rain.
Wind, frost. Heavy machinery was deployed.
Excavators struck the wall. The metal bounced.
Bucket teeth shattered.
Sparks exploded against brick. The wall did not give. Modern steel was losing to PI industrial chemistry. Scientists collected samples. The secret ingredient was not mystical, not alien, not mythical. It was rice.
Glutinous rice.
Ming builders
Mixed snake lime with thick rice porridge. Inside the rice was
A
amylopectin.
complex carbohydrate.
that interfered with crystal growth in lime mortar.
Instead of brittle mineral structures,
The mixture formed a dense, elastic microstructure. It
absorbed stress. It resisted cracking.
hardened over centuries through carbonation. The result was a composite material that rivaled.
And in some cases outperformed modern cement.
The Great Wall is, in literal chemical terms,
The largest rice-reinforced
composite structure in human history. But rice is only the beginning.
Because move west, leave the mountains. Enter the Gobi Desert. There are no forests,
no quarries, no easy stone.
only sand, gravel, shrubs.
Salt lakes, and wind that erodes skin.
Wind that buries roads, wind that erases cities.
And dynasty.
Engineers faced a problem no brick could solve.
So they invented layered earth technology.
Reeds laid horizontally like reinforcement bars.
Gravel and sand compacted above them.
Then saline water poured into the mixture.
As it dried, salt crystallized between particles.
Binding them into a rigid mass. Branches acted as tensile reinforcement. Salt acted as mineral glue.
This desert will survive 2,000 years of sandstorms.
Not because it was thick, but because it was adaptive.
The Great Wall is not one material. It is dozens.
It is not one design.
It is evolution.
And yet, for centuries, historians described it as passive.
A tall barrier, a defensive line.
A static shield.
That interpretation shattered in 2022.
High-resolution drone mapping.
Scanned remote wall sections, centimeter by centimeter.
Researchers noticed subtle irregularities in brick. Patterns, patches, shifts, and anomalies. They were not repairs, they were doors.
More than 130 hidden passageways,
Disguised as solid wall. From the outside, monolithic. From the inside, permeable, thin outer brick layers concealed interior corridors.
defenders could break through from within.
And strike enemies who believed they faced an unbroken barrier. The wall was not simply defense, it was a trap. It
Was active terrain control, a permeable membrane that allows strategic counter.
movement, and then the biology.
Dark crust once scraped off by restorers turned out to be a biocortex.
Cyanobacteria, moss, lichens, living organisms forming a protective skin. They sealed microcracks, reduced erosion, stabilized surfaces. Sections covered by biocrust
Were up to 3 times stronger than clean sections without this living layer.
desert wind would grind the wall into powder. In parts of China, the Great Wall is alive, and still, that is not its most advanced feature. Because the wall did not only block enemies, it transmitted information.
Signal towers every few kilometers. By day, thick black smoke. By night, fire. Fuel mixtures included sulfur.
Saltpeter and dried animal waste to produce dense vertical plumes visible for miles. Each number of smoke columns corresponded to enemy size.
Within hours,
Alerts traveled hundreds of kilometers. In an era without telegraph,
the wall created an empire-wide warning network.
a medieval fiber optic system built from flame.
Engineering, chemistry, biology, communication, and still it failed. Engineering brilliance did not save it.
Chemistry did not save it.
Hidden doors did not save it.
Because
No wall in history has ever been defeated by stone.
walls are defeated by people. In the 13th century, a storm approached from the north. Genghis Khan,
A name that still carries the weight of conquest.
by military logic. The Mongol cavalry should have failed. Horse archers cannot.
Scale 10-meter stone fortifications. Speed is useless against vertical granite.
And yet, the Mongols entered.
They did not smash the wall with catapults. They did not grind it down with siege towers.
They did something far more dangerous. They negotiated.
They threatened.
They bribed.
They exploited political fractures inside the Ming.
Defense structure. A general made a decision, and the gates opened. No explosion. No dramatic breach.
No cinematic collapse, just a quiet shift of loyalty.
This is the Great Wall paradox. You can design the perfect fortification.
You can calculate stress tolerances. You can reinforce stone with rice. You can build signal networks that outrun horses.
But you cannot engineer loyalty.
Greed is stronger than granite.
Fear moves faster than fire signals.
Resentment erodes institutions more efficiently than wind erodes sand.
The wall was meant to guarantee security. Instead, it revealed the ultimate weakness of centralized power. Because the wall created something dangerous, illusion. Emperors looked at it.
And believed they were untouchable.
A psychological shield is sometimes more dangerous than a physical one. When rulers believe stone equals safety,
They neglect diplomacy. They neglect reform. They neglect internal stability. And history punishes the mistake.
but the wall did not disappear.
It transformed. Dynasties fell. Empires shifted.
Borders changed, but the wall remained fragmented, weathered, half-buried, reclaimed by vegetation.
In the early 20th century, explorers documented ruins swallowed by forest, sections collapsing into valleys.
Watchtowers crumbling into dust.
For a moment,
It looked like time would erase it completely.
then something unexpected happened. The wall stopped being a weapon and became a symbol.
Not of separation, but of identity, and eventually of connection. Millions now walk its spine every year.
Tourists from every continent, languages from every culture.
What was once a frontier of fear is now a walkway of memory. And here is the final twist. The Great Wall was never truly about keeping people out. It was about
Who was inside?
it.
Was about drawing a line around civilization and declaring, this is ours.
But over time, the line blurred.
Cultural exchange continued. Ideas crossed even when armies could not. No wall in history,
Has permanently separated human worlds, and the Great Wall proves it.
because today, the wall is no longer military. It is architectural memory.
It is material science. It is ecological collaboration. It is psychological study.
It is political metaphor.
It is the embodiment of a civilization's attempt to
control chaos, and it teaches something uncomfortable.
Strength is never absolute.
Security is never permanent.
Isolation is never complete.
The wall that was built to divide now unites.
The structure that was meant to stop movement now invites it.
And the lie about visibility from space
misses the real point entirely. The Great Wall does not need to be seen from orbit. Its influence is already everywhere. In engineering labs,
analyzing rice lime composites,
in desert ecology research, studying biocrust stabilization, in military academies, dissecting layered defense theory, in
political debates about borders and barriers. The wall is not impressive because it is long.
It is impressive because it adapted, it learned, it evolved, and even in failure, it survived.
No empire
lasts forever.
No fortification guarantees peace. But ideas, especially those carved into mountains, can outlive the hands that built them.
The Great Wall began as fear, made visible.
It became ingenuity,
made permanent.
And it ended as a lesson written in stone.
Not about division, but about limits. Because the strongest walls
are never the ones that stand forever.
They are the ones that reveal what cannot be walled off.
Human ambition, human weakness,
and the endless negotiation between protection and freedom. The Great Wall is not visible from space,
but its story is visible in every civilization that has ever tried to build
permanence in a temporary world, and that is far more powerful than any myth. For nearly 2,000 years, the Great Wall consumed something far more valuable than stone.
It consumed lives, not thousands, millions.
The exact number is debated, but historical estimates suggest that
during various construction phases,
particularly under Qing and Ming rule, hundreds of thousands of laborers died from exhaustion,
starvation, disease, and exposure.
The wall was not only a defense project,
it was an economic strain of unimaginable scale. To understand the wall, you must understand the cost.
Transporting stone across mountains without modern machinery
required enormous human chains. Blocks weighing hundreds of kilograms were hauled by teams using ropes,
wooden rollers, and sheer muscle.
Rice had to be supplied to workers.
Timber cut and moved. Lime kilns fired continuously.
Taxes were raised to fund labor and materials. Entire villages were mobilized. Families were separated. Rebellions erupted under the burden of forced labor.
The Great Wall did not simply guard the empire, it drained it.
And here lies another paradox.
The wall was built to protect prosperity,
but in protecting it, it weakened the economy that sustained it.
This pattern repeats across history.
Massive defensive projects often consume the very resources
they are meant to preserve. Under the Ming dynasty, the financial pressure became severe.
Continuous maintenance was required.
Watchtowers needed staffing.
Signal systems required constant oversight.
Garrisons had to be supplied. The wall was not a one-time construction. It
was an ongoing expense.
And then there is the psychological dimension.
Walls change how societies think.
When you build a massive barrier,
you redefine the world in binary terms. Inside, outside, civilized,
barbarian, safe, threat. The Great Wall solidified identity,
as it created a visible line between agricultural,
empire, and nomadic steppe.
But cultural exchange never stopped.
Trade routes crossed through guarded passes. Silk moved north.
Horses moved south.
Ideas moved in both directions.
The wall did not stop contact. It regulated it.
And sometimes it intensified it. Because defining an enemy strengthens unity, the wall became a narrative tool, a symbol of endurance, a reminder of threat. But symbols evolve.
After the Mongol conquest
and the rise of the Yuan dynasty,
the wall lost strategic relevance. The rulers were no longer outsiders.
The boundary shifted inward when the Qing dynasty later expanded China's borders far beyond the wall. Its defensive purpose weakened further. The empire now extended deep into territories
once considered hostile.
The wall was no longer a frontier, it was an artifact.
And yet it remained.
Even in decline, it retained symbolic gravity.
During the 20th century, as China modernized,
the wall became something new again, not a military asset, not a frontier,
but a national icon.
It was reinterpreted as proof of ancient ingenuity, proof of civilizational continuity, proof of resilience.
Tourism transformed its meaning. Where soldiers once stood,
scanning the horizon for cavalry dust,
now visitors stand holding cameras. Where signal fires once transmitted warnings,
now smartphones transmit images worldwide. The wall became global,
And ironically, its original function separation inverted. It became a bridge, an attraction pulling people inward.
Scholars began studying it not only as architecture,
but as data, as a system, as a long-term experiment in statecraft.
And when analyzed from that perspective, the Great Wall teaches something uncomfortable. It demonstrates the limits of isolation. No matter how long the barrier, no matter how thick the stone, no matter how advanced the engineering,
trade finds a path, diplomacy finds a weakness, corruption finds a gate, human interaction ignores lines.
Even the most powerful wall cannot permanently separate cultures that share geography. Over centuries,
northern tribes
integrated into Chinese political systems.
Military tactics were exchanged.
Technology was absorbed.
The wall did not freeze history.
It influenced it.
There is another overlooked detail.
The wall was not a continuous, unbroken structure. It was fragmented,
strategically positioned along key routes and passes.
Gaps existed.
Terrain itself functioned as part of the defense.
Mountains were barriers.
Rivers were barriers. The wall amplified natural geography, rather than replacing it.
Which means the myth of a seamless, endless stone dragon is partly romantic fiction.
Reality is more strategic and more intelligent. Modern satellite mapping has revealed that what we call the Great Wall
is actually a network exceeding 21,000 kilometers.
When all branches are included, it is less a line and more a web. A distributed system responding to terrain,
threat, and politics. And here is the final layer.
Every civilization builds walls.
Some of stone,
some of ideology,
some of law. The Great Wall is simply the most visible example.
But its ultimate lesson is not about masonry. It is about adaptation.
The wall changed materials depending on environment, changed design depending on threat, changed function depending on dynasty,
and eventually changed meaning depending on era,
from fear to control to illusion,
to symbol to heritage. Few human projects have survived long enough to experience
that many transformations. The Great Wall has.
It is no longer defending against nomads. It is defending memory. It defends the idea that civilizations can endure, that engineering can outlast rulers,
that identity can survive conquest.
But it also whispers a warning. Do not mistake stone for security.
Do not mistake length for strength.
Do not mistake wars for solutions.
Because the Mongols proved something essential. The greatest breaches are human. The strongest fortifications collapse from within. The Great Wall did not fail because it was weak. It failed because systems fail when trust fails. And that may be the most important insight of all. The wall is not visible from space, but its pattern is visible in history. Build, fortify, relax,
neglect,
fall, rebuild, transform. The Great Wall stands today, not as a monument to division,
but as a monument to adaptation.
It is chemistry hardened over centuries. It is desert engineering that outsmarted erosion. It
is biological collaboration between stone and life. It is psychological architecture shaping identity.
It is political ambition frozen into landscape.
And above all, it is proof that even the longest wall on Earth cannot
stop the movement of time.
Empires fall,
borders shift, enemies become allies, wars become walkways,
and myths dissolve under scrutiny.
The Great Wall is not the only structure visible from space,
but it is one of the clearest structures
visible in human history, not because of how it looks, but because of what it reveals about fear, about power,
about innovation, about betrayal, and about the eternal human attempt to control the uncontrollable.
That is the real Great Wall, not the bricks, not the towers,
not the myth, but the lesson carved into mountains.
It was built to stop invaders.
It revealed human weakness.
It
was built to divide civilizations. It now unites
the world. It was built to guarantee security.
It proved that security is never permanent because no wall in history has ever defeated time. Empires fall,
borders shift, alliances change, and stone, no matter how strong, cannot hold back fear, greed, or ambition. The Great Wall does not stand as proof of separation. It stands as proof
that even the strongest barriers are temporary, and the only thing that truly endures is the lesson.
Thank you for watching the Cipher history. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep decoding the secrets of history together. See you in the next mystery.